Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Arvin Lamont CSC meeting. It is 5 o'clock, so we can go ahead and get started. Let me start recording the meeting real quick. Okay. Amy, you'll have to record since you are the host. Okay, perfect. Welcome, everybody, again. We are very excited that you have joined us this evening. We know some of you are joined by car. Before we get started, we will spend a few minutes going through our interpretation and housekeeping slides. So we can start first with getting our interpretation set up so everyone can participate. At this point, I am happy to invite Tanya from our Linguística team to share those instructions.
Thank you, Liz. Good afternoon, everyone. Buenas tardes a todos. Bienvenidos a su reunión. Les recordamos que ya tenemos la interpretación encendida y disponible para que aquellos de ustedes que deseen escuchar la junta en español. Si ustedes ingresaron con una computadora, en la parte de abajo de su menú de Zoom van a ver el icono de un mundo. Por favor, seleccionen ese icono y seleccionen el canal de español. También pueden seleccionar silenciar el audio original para que solamente escuchen la voz del intérprete. Si ustedes ingresaron con un teléfono móvil o una tableta, sus opciones van a ser un poco diferentes. Van a tocar su pantalla y van a buscar los tres puntitos con el menú de más o more, ya sea en la parte de arriba o abajo de su pantalla. Van a ver el menú que dice interpretación de idioma y en las actualizaciones nuevas en algunos aparece el icono del mundo. Pueden seleccionarlo ahí y seleccionar el canal de español y también silenciar el audio original. Y por último, el botón que diga done, listo y finalizado, si les aparece. Si no les aparece es porque no necesitan seleccionar. Ahora voy a dar mis instrucciones en inglés. Hello, everyone. This is just a reminder that we already have interpretation function ready for you. So if you're a monolingual English speaker, we do ask you to please select the English channel. That way you can have that communication from Spanish into English simultaneously. If you're joining with a computer, you will see a globe at the bottom of your Zoom menu. Please click on the globe and select English. If you're joining with a cell phone or a tablet, your options will be a bit different. You need to tap your screen and find the three dots with the word more, either on top or at the bottom of your screen. Select language interpretation, or maybe now the new update has the globe as well. Click on that option and select English. And then if you have the option, you can select done or finalize. Please let us know if you need any help. We can help you or assist you with interpretation. Thank you very much.
This is Liz. Thank you so much, Tanya, for those interpretation instructions. Let's give it a moment to see if we have it all set up correctly. Amy, let me know. Maybe a thumbs up once that's ready. Thumbs up, perfect. Okay. So it looks like our interpretation is on, but as Tanya mentioned, if you are having any troubles, if you can't hear anything, please feel free to speak up and let us know. We will stop the meeting to make sure that you are able to get into the proper interpretation channel and that you have no issues. One thing I also want to highlight on these slides is we are asking all folks in this meeting to please state your name before you start speaking. You'll notice when I first started, I said, this is Liz. This is a really, really important part of our interpretation. It's really important for those who are on the other side of the interpretation to be able to understand the flow of the conversation. It can be hard when we are not stating our names. So we will be reminding folks throughout tonight to please state your name before speaking, and just really encourage folks to start building this practice. So moving forward in our slides, here are the naming conventions. So if you are a member of the CSC, We ask that you designate that in your Zoom name. And if you are a resident, a part of our stipend program, we also ask that you put an R in your name. And this, again, is an important part of our stipend tracking process. If you are from another agency or even a member of the public, we also ask that you still add that to your Zoom name just to help us keep track of who is here and our attendance tracking. On this slide is our virtual meeting etiquette. So we ask for everyone to stay on mute unless you are speaking. If you are calling in on the phone, you can press *6 to mute and unmute yourself. We also ask if you have a comment or question to please raise your Zoom hand so we can keep track of everybody. And if you are on the phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9. And we also have another reminder for residents in the stipend program to please stay on for at least 75% of our meeting to be eligible for the stipend. On this slide, we have our group agreements, and you should feel very familiar at this point. We do typically spend some time reading through these. We will not take that time today, but just know that as your facilitators, we will be keeping these enforced and making sure that we are having a productive and respectful discussion tonight. On this slide, we have our agenda for tonight. We will start with our welcomes and introductions. Then we will have a review of our action items tracker. Then we have one of our main agenda items, which is the outreach subcommittee meeting review. Then we will have a grant application walkthrough. And then we'll have our usual standing updates and then wrap up our meeting and then have our final public comment. And so I'll stop sharing my screen and just want to welcome everybody again. For those who joined maybe a little late, my name is Liz Lev, and I'm one of the facilitators on the Harder & Company team, joined here by my co-facilitator, Amy Ramos. At this point, I would love to open it up for some welcome and introduction from our co-leads and our Air District representative. I know we have Bianca here, and I am scanning to see if Cesar is here as well. Would love to invite you both to share any opening remarks if you have any at this time.
Yes, hi, this is Cesar. Just a quick thank you to everyone for joining, and really want to take note that, we've already been here for quite some time, meaning as a committee, we're one of the, if not the largest committee in the 617 process. And we're staying strong. The numbers are still here. So big thank you to everyone that has been here and is here.
This is Liz. Thank you, Cesar, for those great, warm opening words. It is really nice to see so many faces that have continued through this process. And Bianca, I know you are in a car with several CSC members, so I'll give you a moment in case there's anything that you would like to add, but there's no pressure. And I'm sure we can hear from you later tonight as well. And so at this point, we'd love to invite our Air District representative, Jessica, to share any opening remarks.
This is Jessica. Thank you, Liz. I'll just echo the welcome from Cesar and echo the thanks for staying strong and just the great participation. Not only do we have a lot of folks that attend the meeting, but we have a variety of different folks we hear from during the meetings, and we're hoping to continue that tradition tonight. So certainly a lot of the discussion today is a reflection of some of the feedback we've already heard, but we're certainly open to continued discussion. So feel free to engage with us tonight. That's what these meetings are about. And especially tonight, we have a lot of space to have those discussions. I just want to, again, as always, thank the co-leads for helping us craft the agenda, especially all of you, or I should say, in addition to all of you who helped us at the agenda setting, come up with what we were going to talk about today. This really is a co-developed and co-created process with you all. So thank you for that. And with that, I'll pass it back to Liz. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Jessica. And this is Liz. So at this point, I'm happy to transition us to our next action item, which is reviewing our action items tracker. So we take this time at every meeting to review the past action items, hear about their progress and any updates. We will have also at the end of this action item review, I believe we have a Caltrans representative who will be sharing some of their updates as well, just a little early because they will have to leave our meeting early. So I will pass it to Eric and he will walk through the updates for the action items, and then we will answer any questions and pass it to our Caltrans representative. So Eric, take it away.
Thank you, Liz. Yes, this is Eric with the Valley Air District, your Arvin and Lamont community liaison. I'll go ahead and share my screen. Can you folks see my screen? Perfect. I see some thumbs up. Alrighty. As always, we do have 4 sections with our action items. I know folks do receive our most recent action items in the mail, which is a smaller version of this. So we're going to be covering 3 sections, our in progress, complete, and ongoing. I'll go ahead and start with our in progress. Oh. Okay. Go ahead and try this again. Well, presenting mode is not working today, so I'll go ahead and zoom in. So, all right. I'll actually hold off on our Caltrans items just because, as Liz said, we do have a representative here that's going to go over these in greater detail. So I'll go ahead and start off with action item 38.4, current energy. I know folks wanted to have more than 4 months be available on their historical data. Current Energy and the district, we've been working together to update the folks of the CSC to have that information at a future CSC meeting. All right, I'll go ahead and return to the top. Go to our completed section. So we did have a CSC member that had some concerns about waste cleanup by Haybaker, north of Panama. Both the district and Kern County have reached out to this individual and will continue to work with this individual as things progress. All right, moving to our ongoing section, which is our last section. So as always, the district, we are committed to sending paper copies of just great fact sheets, comprehensive information to the folks of the Arvin and Lamont community and all of our AB 617 communities. And if folks need any more information, please feel free to reach out. In your packets, you should see some flyers as well for a program that we have. And I know I saw David on this call, so I'll go ahead and go back to our first action item. So I know Caltrans is working to update ongoing projects for the following roundabouts at State Route 184 and 223. I'll go ahead and open it up to David. I think I saw you on the call.
Yep.
Perfect.
David Deal with Caltrans regarding 38.1. And I believe that's the roundabout issue. Caltrans will begin improvements in what I was told mid 2025. So they are still in process of getting all approvals done so that they can issue a contract and actually start construction.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And I'll scoot over to the bottom, 38.5. Go ahead, David.
This is Dave Deal again with Caltrans, and I wanted to say I'm sitting in for Lorena Mendiblis, who will be back on the meetings for the next time she couldn't attend this evening. Let's see. She says that she is meeting with Kern Public Works tomorrow regarding the transit shelter, and hopes to provide an update to the meeting, the May meeting, the next meeting in May. So she's going to get her information from Kern Public Works and then be able to provide that to the committee.
Perfect. Thank you so much, David. I'll go ahead and
Thank you.
leave it open for questions regarding our action items. Go ahead, Tim.
I feel like needs to be clarification on the runabouts. Our questions are not regarding the runabouts. Our question is regarding infrastructure projects that were promised after the runabouts would be constructed on the north side of 184. I feel like you guys are concentrating on the runabouts. They're already complete. They're already there. We're wondering when the projects that we were promised, like improvements to the sidewalks in Main Street, which is part of 184, projects like a walking path to the local school to Mount View, and also flood prevention projects that were also promised when those were completed. It seems like we're concentrating on the runabouts and not on the actual thing. And I think I clarified this statement on the actual agenda setting meeting, and it got skipped over.
This is Jessica. Thank you so much, Tim, for clarifying that. And yes, I think we just must have misunderstood that action item. So I appreciate the clarification. That is one of our district updates today, but I will happily take it right now. It seems more relevant right now. We are going to our governing board tomorrow to approve that work with Kern County. So we will have more updates on timing and all of the next steps, and we can make sure that we have Yolanda from Kern County's team here to talk about all of those projects. All of the projects you all already supported we are moving forward with the county, and our board is set tomorrow to approve that funding amount that you all supported. So thank you for clarifying, because that definitely was not how we took that note. But I'm happy to provide that update right now. So we should be moving forward with that, as soon as that's approved tomorrow.
Thank you, Tim. Oh, go ahead, Tim.
Because one of the questions, because I actually prepared for this meeting because I had several questions. I wish actually the actual representative Caltrans would have been here. I know sometimes scheduling is hard, but also we had other questions regarding, like, is it feasible for us to start advocating again that we would like 184 to be surrendered to the county instead of retaining by Caltrans? Because it seems like we always get promises, but we don't get actual completion of projects. I've noticed several parts of 184, which is Main Street, in the corridors of Lamont that need major improvements that are lacking and almost over 10 years forgotten. And these are some of the issues that we are always advocating, because, you ask for commuters to walk instead of driving, but yet they don't have sidewalks to walk on, or the sidewalks that they do have gaps and potholes. So it's kind of like, you want us to do, but yet you don't provide the tools to do.
So maybe if I can just note as a broader item, and what I wonder if it's a main item for our next meeting, is a comprehensive, that way we have the right people at the right time prepared in like road paving infrastructure comprehensive update. So to Tim's point, it's not just one update on one project, the district's update on another, and like a separate request. Maybe we can all take this comment that Tim just mentioned and then maybe facilitate even more questions folks have ahead of the meeting. So we can come with that comprehensive answer. I can tell you certainly that all that large project with all those different pieces that you all supported, that is going, and we are, moving forward on that and funding that piece. But I hear you when you say, okay, that's one of several discussions that maybe can be happening in the future. So I wonder if that's something we flag for an update at a broader meeting.
This
All
is
right.
Liz. Yeah, thank you. Go ahead, Sandra.
Thank you. I just had a quick question. When you mentioned that there was going to be a bus shelter, possibly from Caltrans, where is it going to be placed?
This is Jessica. I think David, you might have unmuted, but I believe that question is for Caltrans.
No, yeah, I was looking at the notes that I got. I am not sure that they have specifically identified, but that is yeah, that's I got a picture, and it's next to a telephone pole, and it's not really specific as to where I can tell you, hey, this is at the northeast corner of this street in 184. So I believe Lorena was going to follow up with Angela.
This is Jessica. I can add that. Let's add that as an action item too, to get that exact location, since we have the update that, you know, there is something moving forward, but we just want to make sure we understand the exact location. And again, if that makes sense, Sandra, as a comprehensive sort of infrastructure, road improvement, you know, sustainable transit discussion at our next meeting, we can have all of that information, hopefully ahead of time. I'll just ask Caltrans if we can get that, we can send it out to the committee ASAP.
Yeah, thank you. That would be helpful.
This is Liz. Thank you, Sandra, for the question, and we are noting that down. We have a few hands, and next up is Diana.
Sí, buenas tardes. Soy Diana Mireles. Nada más un breve comentario sobre lo que se mencionó ahorita de la 184, que si podías pasarse al condado. En años pasados se trató de hacer que se pasara al condado. Desafortunadamente, pues no se pudo. Se estuvieron haciendo las juntas el condado con el Chamber of Commerce aquí de Lamont, y parece que ellos hicieron presentación y ellos se opusieron a que se cambiara al 184. Nosotros como residentes y como miembro de un comité de aquí de Lamont, estábamos de acuerdo que se cambiara a la 184 porque que se cambiara al condado. Nosotros estábamos de acuerdo porque de esa manera podíamos hacer más la abogacía aquí en el condado que con Caltrans, porque sí es bien difícil para nosotros contactarnos, ir hasta otro lugar con Caltrans, o era muy difícil. Pero nada más era como un comentario sobre lo que pasó con la 184, por qué no fue del condado.
This is Liz, and thank you, Diana, for sharing that. Jesus.
Hi, this is Jesus. I just had a quick clarifying question, and sorry if I missed it. If there was going to be 1 or 2 bus stops on the 184 near the Hilltop Fuller Acres area. Because I know historically community members have been asking for one a bus stop near where the current bus stop is. It's pretty centered to the community. So I imagine that's where it would be prioritized. Yes, sir. So would it be? Oh, I guess we'll see next time. But whether or not it'll be in that center location. But and sorry if I missed it. Was it 1 or 2 locations, bus stop locations?
This is Dave Deal again with Caltrans. As far as I'm understanding, it's 1 transit shelter. I think Lorena was going to, as I indicated, meet up with Kern Public Works tomorrow and get further information on exactly where. But from what I understand, it was a singular bus stop.
Thank you.
This is Liz. Thank you for the question. Next, we can go to Gustavo.
Hi, good afternoon. This question is for Caltrans, for Dave. And I'm sorry if I'm not up to date on maybe reports that were given before, but in the past we are, especially in Arvin, on the intersection of 223 and Walnut Drive, that we've been asking, to have to put a traffic light there. And the last time I heard, I believe Caltrans were planning to just paint a crosswalk there, just painting it. What I'm hearing from residents that's may not even, in terms of the safety, may not be good, especially a lot of students are crossing right now, and more students will be crossing because, the Bakersfield College campus will be, I think, in operation soon. So, Dave, do you have any updates there on the request, or what is the current situation there?
This is Dave Deal with Caltrans. Can you repeat the location? I got 223 and I couldn't.
And Walnut Drive.
Walnut
Drive.
Walnut. Gotcha.
Yeah.
I do not have any information on that, but I will pass that on to Lorena, and at the next meeting, she can provide you an update. And that was a crosswalk?
Yeah, I think we have been asking for, I think, a traffic light, because that's kind of between two other traffic lights, and traffic goes very fast in that area. And the concern is that if there is just a crosswalk, painted crosswalk, traffic will not stop, and actually it will be dangerous for people crossing there, because traffic between the other two traffic lights is far one from another, and normally traffic goes fast because the Walnut does not cross the 223. It just there is cars cannot go from one side to another, so that's one of the reasons that residents believe that a traffic signal will be the best option in terms of safety for drivers and pedestrians, and also to have a more efficient way for traffic in the heart of the community of Arvin.
This is Dave Deal with Caltrans. So there is no crosswalk currently, right?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, we would if signalization of that intersection is warranted, we would have to also evaluate whether a roundabout would be a better improvement for that intersection. But be that as it may, we will look into that and see what improvements that we could do there, or regarding the signalization.
Thank you.
This is Liz. Thank you for the questions. We're also noting all of this down, and it sounds like we will have, we can discuss at the agenda setting, but it sounds like there will be a more comprehensive update where we can have all of these questions answered at an upcoming CSC meeting. So we can take, I see a couple more hands up, so we will take these last questions, and then we will transition to our next agenda item. So we can start with Francisco.
Sí, buenas tardes. Yo soy residente de aquí de Arvin Y quiero también, por favor, que hagan eso de la luz allí en la Walnut, porque no hay semáforo desde la Campus Drive hasta la Comanche. Y los carros levantan 50 millas en ese pedazo. Y los niños y las mujeres con las carriolas se cruzan por allí para llevar a los niños a la high school, o dan vuelta hasta la Comanche, o dan vuelta hasta la Campus. Y otra cosa, en la Comanche, por la Bar City, donde va a estar el colegio, ellos echaron la banqueta hasta la Comanche. Y de la Comanche, de la Bar City, por la Comanche, no hay banqueta hasta la Nancy. Y esa banqueta es muy necesaria porque por allí camina la gente y no hay ninguna banqueta. Van arriesgando que los carros se orillen y se lleven a la gente. La banqueta comienza de la Nancy hasta el 7-Eleven, pero en ese pedazo no hay ninguna banqueta y está muy peligroso. Yo quisiera que tomaran eso en cuenta para que hagan algo. Gracias.
Thank you. This is Liz. We definitely hear how important this is, and thank you for sharing that. It does sound like this is a priority topic that we'll bring back and have more time for at a next meeting. So we can go to Christine.
Hi, everybody. This is for the benefit of the residents and to Dave with Caltrans, and in response to Gustavo and some of the residents' comments regarding the Walnut project. So, Dave, we've submitted several reports to Caltrans. It's in our Safe Routes to School report. It's in a recent report conducted by California Walks. The city of Arvin has submitted a traffic study to Caltrans. Lorena is aware of this project. And what this latest or the last comment that I have from Caltrans is that there is plans for a rectangular rapid flashing beacon at that intersection of Walnut and Highway 223 that has planned funding that Caltrans is working on right now. Lorena would be the most updated contact on the project. Obviously, the residents would prefer to have a full signal, but I do have a commitment from Caltrans that they were going to, at the very least, fund a rapid rectangular flashing beacon, which is a crosswalk that signalizes so that traffic stops so people can get across at that intersection. So I just wanted to provide that update. Ideally, it would be even better if we had a full signal at that intersection, but that should catch you up. And that's as much as I know with regards to the Walnut project. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. This is Dave Deal again. I just want to iterate. I believe what we call that is a hawk, and it's a rapid flashing beacon. And yes, it is triggered by pedestrians that want to cross. They hit the button just like in a crosswalk, and the flashing lights start flashing. I indicate to traffic that, hey, you need to slow down or come to a stop, so that the pedestrians can cross. But I thank you for that.
This is Liz. Thank you, Christine, for the updates. And also thank you, David, for adding that context. I don't see any other hands, and I don't see questions in the chat. So I think we can close this agenda item. We have all of our notes and action items, and we can transition to our outreach subcommittee meeting review. So for this next agenda item, this is a review of the outreach subcommittee meeting that happened, I believe, maybe 2 weeks ago already. So this will be a summary of the key points from that discussion, as well as the next steps that came out of that discussion. And just as a reminder, subcommittee meetings are optional for all to attend, and they are a space to dive deeper into these topics or certain measures that are of interest and also high priority. Typically, the updates from these subcommittee meetings will happen during our standing updates. But since this was the first outreach subcommittee, we heard recommendations that folks would like to dedicate time, an actual agenda item tonight, to having a group discussion and bringing all of that conversation into this space together. So we are hoping that the whole CSC can come out of this agenda item with a more clear understanding of what was discussed and also what those next steps are. And also just so you can have an opportunity to answer or to ask any questions or add any comments if you were not able to attend that subcommittee. So at this point, I'm happy to pass it to, I believe, our Air District team to get us started.
All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Daniel Gonzalez. I am with the Valley Air District. I'm also one of the liaisons for the Arvin Lamont CSC committee. I'll be working with you, and I look forward to working with you. And so I'm going to go over very briefly some of the outreach subcommittee recaps that we discussed about 2 weeks ago now. Next slide. And so just to give you a recap for those that weren't at the meeting, some of the efforts or platforms that we utilize, the district utilizes to ensure that we reach our target audiences in regards to any campaign or program or incentive that we're trying to promote, can be in combination of any of these mediums. Obviously, we tend to utilize social media. That could include Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, Nextdoor, and LinkedIn. We use these to share flyers, PSAs, general messaging regarding upcoming events, announcements, and other district-related news. Obviously, we also use traditional media. This includes TV, radio, outdoor billboards. This can be in the form of just simple PSAs or traditional media interviews that we conduct in English and in Spanish. Oftentimes with Univision, ABC 30, NBC, KC24, and CBS. We also use, to complement those above mentioned efforts, digital media or over-the-top media. This is streamlining and delivering content over the internet directly to the consumer. And obviously to emphasize and complement all of the other mediums that we have been utilizing over the years is direct outreach, ensuring that our district staff, along with CSR and grants representatives, are on the ground connecting with the communities directly. And this can be in the form of participating in community events, connecting with the parents at school, with other organizations, and establishing a rapport with other stakeholders in the community. Next slide. And so just to highlight some of the activities that we have completed in this year so far, district staff has been out in Arvin Lamont distributing 2024 Healthy Air Living Kids calendars to all the schools, along with a presentation to a migrant program in Lamont back in February. We also have had an air monitoring van tour with the Boys and Girls Club. And more recently, we participated in the health fair hosted by the Lamont Family Resource and Learning Center. Next slide. So one of the key measures that we're here to talk about tonight, and hopefully come to next steps, would be the residential lawn and garden program. We are happy to announce that a vendor has been selected, and that vendor is Steel. They will be assisting us in the implementation of this program. They are a vendor that has a dealership in the Bakersfield area, but they're willing to coordinate a local event to better serve Arvin Lamont residents. So we are planning a lawnmower exchange event in person during the weeknight of June. That was one of the key highlights from the outreach subcommittee, as some of you might remember, that we are aiming to have it in June, so before the hot summer days, for sure. Next slide. Oh, actually, can you go back one more slide? Sorry, Eric. And so I want to highlight here that this residential lawn and garden program, it really is a combination effort. We have district staff from all departments go out, and it'll be a one-day event that happens within a time frame during the evening, ensuring that all those that register receive their lawn their equipment in that same day. Next slide. The other program or measure that we're here to talk about is the vehicle replace program. Some of the next steps that we want to identify, we are working with Valley Clean Air now, or Valley CAN. They do conduct weeknights replacement workshops in the community. And so what we want to hear from you, CSC members, is if you can identify any location that would be ideal to host a workshop. Please keep in mind that these workshops do require to be indoors, typically a restaurant or somewhere that provides seating, access to bathrooms, and parking as well outside for those attending. And we are aiming to open this program in May or June of this year. And so hopefully we can create a consensus as to what would be the ideal location to host this in your community. And so I think at this time, if anyone has any suggestions or ideas as to where we can host this event, I welcome you. We open the floor.
Soy Elvia. Yo pienso que en el veteranos ahí se podría hacer.
Okay, thank you. I'll just suggest at the Veterans Hall.
Y también iba a preguntar, él dijo que si ya que si ya nos apuntamos para la aplicación para lo de la máquina del CSP, pero nos mandaron un papel por el correo, pero ahí dice que tenemos que poner el recibo de la máquina. Entonces ahí ya no le entendí yo. Eso es para llevar la máquina a que la deshagan y que nos devuelvan el dinero. ¿Y cuándo vamos a apuntarnos para ir a recoger la máquina nosotros? ¿En qué aplicación?
Yeah, so we will be going over that as one of our next items on the agenda. After this presentation, we will have one of our district representatives go over the process of the application.
Ok, gracias.
Next question or suggestion? Joanna?
Sí, mi pregunta era, es que yo casi ya tengo un año con la aplicación del carro y ya se le van a vencer las placas al carro que voy a dar y voy a hacer un gasto de da más. So, tenía preguntas, si se le vencen las placas, tengo que volvérselas a agarrar porque se le vencen para junio, pero ya casi tengo el año con la aplicación. So, ¿cómo si las tengo que volver a agarrar?
I think we have a district representative that can answer that question, right?
Oh, go ahead, Akio, if you were gonna, maybe I'll just tee you up, and I believe, and thank you for the reminder, we definitely want to make sure that we follow up. We have Akio here. He is with our incentives team that works on that program and maybe can provide an update on how the program works and timing and maybe next steps for Joanna.
What happened?
So, for the program, you mentioned that your tags were expired, or I believe, I'm sorry. But if they are expired currently, we are looking for application that the vehicle is in use for the past 2 years. That doesn't necessarily have to be through registration for our program. It can also be shown through insurance as well too. So if your vehicle is still insured during the time of the past 24 months from the time you apply for the program, then you'll still be eligible for that requirement.
This is Jessica. Thanks, Akio. And maybe I'll just add that can we follow up, Akio, in the morning with Joanna, if you can we have your contact information. I don't know if you happen to have your project number So what we'll do is we'll reach out directly to you and we'll get your project number from you, and we'll know exactly what's going on with your application to make sure we're understanding what the next steps are. It is possible that we were waiting for final approval to get you more money through this new program. And so that once that launches here in the next few weeks, then it should be a lot faster. But we want to confirm that, and I will have our team reach out directly to you and ask about that project number and get you an official status.
Ok, muchas gracias. Sí, porque le digo que ya tiene mucho tiempo y le hago, voy a volver a pagar otra vez placas. Y pues ya me dijo que no, ¿verdad? Yo espero que en verdad sea que no, porque sí, todavía pues lo tengo con la insurance y todo, pero no quería volver a pagar placas. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Bueno,
Yeah, I'll look into it and I'll give you a phone call tomorrow morning, in
Oh.
regards to your application.
thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, Sergio. Sandra?
Yeah, thank you. I had just a general question. For the community of like Fuller Acres, I don't believe that there's a restaurant in that community. And I know it has to be, you know, when you host these specific meetings, they have to be indoors. That's become, at least for me, a little bit difficult. So I just kind of wanted to pose a question to like the entire CSC, right? And folks in the area, like, are there any other possible places where we could host a workshop in Fuller Acres to ensure that folks also in that community have access to this program? Yeah, that would be my question.
Great, thank you. I think Heather, can you chime in and see if we?
Hi, Danny. What can I do for you?
Oh, the CSR members that, or the CSC members asking if in the Lost Acres could be hosted in an event as well as there.
And this is Jessica.
Go ahead, Jess.
I think Sandra is more posing it, Sandra, right, to like everyone else, kind of where as Fuller Acres residents they feel. Is that kind of what you were asking, Sandra, is to maybe solicit community input as to where they feel might be best?
Yeah, and I would definitely encourage the community, like folks that live in the area to speak up. But also if there really is no restaurants or no like indoor place where you could host a meeting, would the air district be available to host an outdoor meeting, right, at a resident's house and things like that?
Maybe I'll hit on it, and team, let me know if I'm missing something. Generally, two things. One is this actually is our partners who host it, not the air district. And the reason it needs to be indoors isn't necessarily anything about like under shelter or in comfort. It is actually folks are plugged in with printers and like scanners, and they are processing applications in real time to get folks immediately in line to be a part of this process. It does take a little bit of paperwork. The hope is, and hopefully maybe we can talk a little bit the other way around about making sure we can get folks from Fuller Acres maybe to the event that's happening in Lamont. That might be for now the first best way to see if maybe it's more of a, let's make sure we have folks that can get maybe shuttle people over. We do have mini grants, and I'm wondering if that's a creative use of them, is that we can provide funding to a CBO, and that could be the use of that grant is to get folks to an event if for some reason we don't have an available space in Fuller Acres, but down the street, recognizing it's a different part of the community, but in Lamont, we might have a different place. So I'm wondering if that's the first best approach. If there are no indoor spaces. I'm not sure, Akio or Heather or Danny, if like outdoors, based on the way these programs work, makes sense.
Yeah, from what I've seen, this is Danny. From what I've seen, just again, Valley Can are the leading agency that hosts these events. And we do share their social media that they share weekly on a weekly basis from all these events that they host. And any of you can go into our social media and see those events. We do repost them. And I want to say about 99.9% of the time they are indoors. And for those same reasons that Jessica just pointed out, that they need access to power source in order to be able to process these applications and assist interested applicants to the fullest.
That said, I will also, this is Jessica. I also open up and welcome Sandra's question, whether in the chat or folks want to raise their hand and offer one of those locations. And then I'll also continue to plug, and I might even call a few of you about that other kind of idea we just had. So I appreciate that. Thank you. And Diana.
Sí, aquí en Lamont, desafortunadamente no hay restaurantes con mucho estacionamiento, pero está la Rusty's Pizza, que es el que puede que tenga más estacionamiento, pero sí también podría ser un salón, está el San Diego, y como ha habido muchas juntas comunitarias, Pula Bakers, Wheat Page, pueden juntarse en todas estas, en esta misma comunidad. Siempre en el pasado con otras organizaciones se han hecho estos tipos de juntas y se han juntado todas estas comunidades. Están esos dos lugares, Rusty's Pizza y el Parque San Diego.
Perfect. Thank you, Diana, for that great suggestion for Rusty Pizza and the Park Center. Michelle?
Yeah, I was just thinking on this, and I'm wondering if you did a transportation thing to get them to the, basically to the Wi-Fi and the real time application process. I'm wondering if it would help the residents to have a meeting, maybe in somebody's home or something that's really super local, just to explain why they would want to do that. Just sort of have a meeting and say, gather these documents and this is what we're doing. And, someone could pick you up on X date, X time, that kind of thing. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, no, thank you. Appreciate that. That's a great suggestion, something to consider for sure. Any other suggestions? And again, we don't want to emphasize, it does not only have to be a restaurant, it can be any location that could accommodate residents to be able to provide those necessary utilities to make sure that we are meeting the requirements to fulfill this event. Jesus?
Would there be an opportunity to, because if we're unable to use a resident's home, then would renting out the church that's on the corner, renting or borrowing the church that is on Panama Lane and Waypatch Highway?
Yeah, no, that's a great suggestion. All suggestions are great. This is something that we can definitely look into them and see which one's the best fit in order to meet the needs of and obviously taking into consideration that we need to discuss with Valley Can to ensure that this venue could also work for them as well, since they're the ones leading this program.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Jesus.
Thank you.
Any other suggestions? Well, if any other suggestions do come in mind after this meeting or between the next subcommittee meeting or the next CSC meeting, by all means, please let us know. We can definitely take those in consideration, and we hopefully have this ready to roll out soon enough for you guys. Next slide. And so with that, I do want to emphasize that outreach opportunities are endless. We want to make sure that the district has a presence in the community of Arvin Lamont. We want to make sure that we are visible, we are present, and we establish a rapport with residents, stakeholders, and other community-based organizations. So if you do know of any upcoming events in the coming future, in the next couple of weeks, months, please let us know. Reach out to us. We would be more than glad to go out there, let it be an evening event, a weekday, or a weekend. The district will make the effort to be there because we want to make sure that we are establishing that rapport with you guys. And so please, do not hesitate to let us know of any events that you know that are on the way. And so with that, that concludes our outreach presentation. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to reach out to me. My name is Danny Gonzalez. I know many of you probably it's a new face to you, but I look forward to working with you. And there is my contact information should you need me to reach out.
Hi, everyone. This is Amy. Thank you, Danny, for that presentation. And I'm also noting that Jesus Alonso commented for the Weech pad, the Sunset Middle School could work as well. So we'll make sure to make a note of that, Jesus, in our notes for this evening. Now it's time to transition to our next agenda item, which is the grant application walkthrough item. We have allocated about 35 minutes or so to spend on this agenda item. So based on recommendations that you all provided at the agenda setting meeting and the recognition that the Air District does want to increase participation in its grants program, we're going to dedicate this time to learning about the Air District's grant application process with the intention of ensuring that everyone understands the entire application process. So for example, understanding and recognizing the difference between online applications versus in-person applications. What does it mean to fully submit the application? When is it incomplete or complete? All those questions will be answered by Maricela from the Air District. So the goal for this agenda item is that all CSC members have enough details to be able to participate in these programs. So as Maricela is presenting, if you have questions, please do feel free to raise your hand or place your comments in the chat. And we really do want to make sure that this presentation is clear and that you all have what you need to be able to participate in the program. So with that said, Maricela, please take it away.
Hola, muy buenas tardes. Soy Marisela del Distrito del Aire, una representante aquí en el Departamento de Alcance. Y antes de empezar la presentación, quisiera nomás contestar la pregunta que hizo Elvia. Elvia, lo que pasó fue de que nosotros mandamos unos volantes para que ustedes pudieran saber acerca del programa, pero lo que vamos a hacer, como mencionó Dani en su presentación, de que vamos a tener un evento de intercambio de cortacésped, lo estamos planeando en este momento y va a ser entre mayo y junio. Entonces, es lo que preferemos que ustedes vayan a ese evento porque va a eliminar que ustedes tengan que someter un recibo o tener que comprobar de que ustedes ya reciclaron la otra. Entonces, quería empezar así, de que eso nomás era volantes para que ustedes supieran acerca del programa, pero estamos planeando ese evento y cuando se coordine la fecha, nosotros le vamos a dejar saber a ustedes a través de un correo electrónico, hasta podemos llamarles para dejarles saber esa información. ¿Ok? Entonces, vamos a empezar con la presentación. A ver, espérenme, ok, ahora sí. Gracias, Eric. Entonces, vamos a hacer un recorrido de las solicitudes de subvención. La siguiente diapositiva, Eric. Esto, nosotros, como saben ustedes, somos una agencia que cubre los 8 condados aquí en el Valle de San Joaquín y no nomás tenemos, ¿cómo se dice?, subvenciones o incentivos para los residentes. También tenemos una variedad de subvenciones para agencias públicas, para los residentes, para los negocios o las empresas. Y también tenemos una categoría en esta página web que es para la tecnología. Y ahorita nomás voy a pasar esta diapositiva, pero voy a después de que se acabe esta presentación, voy a darles un repaso por el sitio web para ver cómo se ve en acción. ¿Ok? La siguiente diapositiva. En esta página, y es lo que me voy a enfocar ahorita en un momento, es para los residentes. Ustedes pueden ver de que hay una variedad de subvenciones para ustedes. El primero que está mostrado allí es el cambio de chimenea y estufa de leña, que ese es cuando nosotros proporcionamos fondos para que ustedes puedan cambiar esas antiguas chimeneas contaminantes por una que es más limpia o que quema, que es mejor para el ambiente. Y luego la siguiente opción es para el programa de habitaciones de aire limpio. Esa proporciona unidades de filtración de aire gratis a los residentes de ciertas comunidades desfavorecidas en el valle. Y luego la que vamos a repasar en un momento es la de máquinas, Clean Green Yard Machine, que es para los residentes también, y ese es cuando les proporcionamos un incentivo para reemplazar ese equipo de jardinería y césped que funcionan con gas por una nueva que es eléctrica de cero emisiones. Y luego la siguiente que está aquí es el Drive Clean in San Joaquín, y ese es para el programa de los vehículos. Una es para la reparación, el segundo es para reemplazo y el tercero es el reembolso, aunque el reembolso ahorita está cerrado en este momento, pero son tres componentes para el programa de Drive Clean en San Joaquín. Y luego nomás tenemos a esa última parte, y es un centro de recursos para los vehículos eléctricos enchufados. En caso de que ustedes compren un vehículo eléctrico en el futuro, ustedes pueden entrar a este centro de recursos para poder recibir más información. La siguiente diapositiva. Ok, en esta parte lo que vamos a mostrar es las dos opciones que hay para el programa de cortas céspedes. En esta, la primera opción es la que ustedes, lo que vamos a hacer es el evento. Ya como mencioné anteriormente, lo estamos planeando en este momento, pero la primera opción es de comprar un nuevo cortacésped eléctrico, destruyendo el cortacésped antiguo. Ustedes pueden recibir hasta $500, viene siendo el 100% del costo de lo que se les va a reembolsar a ustedes. Pero siendo el evento, ahí mismo van a hacer todo, no van a tener que comprar nada, no van a tener que mostrar que era reciclado, sino que en este evento le vamos a dar toda esa información. La siguiente opción es que ustedes pueden comprar nueva herramienta de jardinería eléctrica. Si usted, esta no tiene que hacer ningún intercambio, no tiene que destrozar una antigua. Ustedes que nomás quiere comprar una orilladora, una desbrozadora, un motosierra, un cierre de poste, que quiere comprar una de eléctrica, si esa parte o esa pieza cuesta menos de $100, ustedes van a recibir un reembolso de $25. Si ese equipo cuesta más de $100, ustedes van a recibir $50 de un reembolso. Lo que sí quisiera agregar es de que estos reembolsos para la primera opción, en caso de que ustedes lo hagan aparte de este evento, es que no incluye los costos adicionales como impuestos, las tarifas, algún accesorio que esté incluido o los costos de envío. Creo que esa fue la última diapositiva, ¿verdad, Eric? Si puedes cerrar, yo voy a mostrar mi pantalla porque los voy a llevar al sitio web. Eric, si puedes poner, por favor, en el chat el sitio web donde pueden entrar para recibir, que es valleyair.org, y así ahorita les puedo mostrar cómo se ve la aplicación. Ok. Este es el sitio web, que es valleyair.org. Como mencioné, Eric ahorita va a poner eso en el chat para que ustedes puedan también, si en un momento quieran mirar cómo se ve la página. Este es el sitio web del distrito, y lo que quiero mostrarles es que puede ir aquí donde dice Grants and Incentives. Cuando oprima ese botón, va a poder ver de que va a entrar a esta página donde les mostré, ya esto se lo habíamos mostrado a ustedes anteriormente en la presentación, que las diferentes personas o organizaciones que pueden recibir los incentivos. Vamos a oprimir el de residentes. Y si ustedes gustan, como les he mencionado anteriormente en otras presentaciones que he hecho, ustedes pueden cambiar el lenguaje aquí arriba. Y eso le puede dar la opción de inglés, español o en Hmong. Si seleccionan para los residentes, van a poder ver las 5 que mencioné ahorita anteriormente. En este caso, voy a poner el de residencial para las cortas céspedes. Okay. Como ya mencioné, en este caso no voy a hablar de la opción 1 porque ustedes ya van a tener un evento próximamente, pero vamos a hacer la opción 2. Vamos a suponer que usted quiere comprar esa cortacésped, cortacetos o la motosierra o la orilladora. Lo que va a hacer es que va a oprimir aquí donde dice apply, o en español va a decir aplique. le va a llevar a una página donde usted va a simplemente llenar la información. En este caso, voy a ponerle que estoy hablando en español. So, voy a poner español y va a ver que lo va a cambiar inmediatamente. Va a poner su primer nombre. Nomás son algunas preguntas muy pequeñas. So, Marisela, vamos a poner Velázquez. Y luego le va a preguntar, ¿qué condado vive usted? En este caso, va a poner que vive en el condado de Kern, porque estamos hablando de la comunidad de Arvin, Lamont. Va a poner su dirección y va a ver que va a darles las opciones, ¿verdad? Entonces es posible que de su dirección va a poder oprimir eso para que le llene la forma inmediatamente. So ya ve que entró la información de la ciudad, puso el estado y el código postal. Um, si la dirección de correo es diferente a la anterior, entonces quiere oprimir ese botón, pero si es la misma, la dirección, al igual que el correo postal, es lo mismo, va a dejarlo así. Voy a poner mi teléfono principal para en caso de que tengan alguna pregunta, se puedan comunicar con ustedes. Y lo otro importante es de que pongan un correo electrónico. Vamos a poner esta información aquí. Y luego va aquí decirles cuál opción es la que quiere hacer usted. En este caso, como les mencioné, vamos a hacer la opción 2 porque queremos comprar la nueva herramienta. Y aquí usted va a ponerle qué es el nuevo tipo de equipo que usted compró. ¿Es la cortacésped? ¿Es una orilladora? ¿El cortacetos o la desbrozadora? ¿Cortacetos, motosierra o el sierra de poste? Va a oprimir a una opción. Vamos a decir que yo compré la orilladora. Y voy a poner aquí el costo de lo que compré. Vamos a suponer que pagué 120 por ella. Ya después, aquí van a poder arrastrar o soltar la imagen del recibo. En este momento, ahorita no tengo una copia de un recibo, pero es lo que van a poder, pueden poner una foto. Si ustedes están usando su teléfono o una tableta, ustedes van a poder tomar una foto a ese recibo y subirlo automáticamente porque lo va a poder seleccionar por la cámara. Y luego va a poner aquí su nombre en letra de molde, porque no va a poder firmar. Ya tiene, como usted puede ver, ya la fecha está hecha y luego vamos a oprimir el botón que dice subir solicitud. En este caso, me va a decir que es necesario poner esa foto porque quieren ver que ya recibieron el recibo. Y es tan simple, es los únicos pasos que tiene que hacer para que puedan recibir ese reembolso. Y como pueden ver, es bien fácil porque simplemente pide unas simples preguntas. Y muchas de nuestras aplicaciones para los residentes es igual así, ¿verdad? No les piden muchos detalles. Es muy simple. So, es lo único que tengo para ustedes en este momento. Puedo recibir si tienen alguna pregunta de otra cierta aplicación que quisieran ver o si tienen alguna pregunta o inquietud.
Yo sí tenía un comentario, pues Arvin somos low income, la mayoría por ciento de la gente, ¿verdad? Somos campesinos. Y pues sí es de mucha ayuda a todos los incentivos que hay. Y quería ver, no sé si se puede, ¿verdad? Como en la Vallarta, es la tienda más grande que hay, ahí toda la gente va, la verdad. Todo Arvin va a esa tienda. Y yo vi, ya tiene muchísimo tiempo que vi ¿cómo se llama? Un panfleto en una tienda de Lamont en la 184 ahí en la esquina, bien bonito de ustedes. Y no sé si se podía poner uno así de ese tamaño grandecito en la Vallarta, pero no solo de que vaya como en cuadritos, que vaya lo de las máquinas, que vaya lo de los carros, que vaya de los que acaba de decir ahorita, como la Sierra Moto y todo eso, en uno más grande, ahí en la Vallarta, nada más es uno, ¿verdad? Esta es la tienda principal de Arvin, ahí todo, en las entradas, ahí toda la gente va.
Ok.
Sería de mucha ayuda.
Muchas gracias por esa sugerencia. So, vamos a escribir aquí que debemos de poner más información allí en La Vallarta, entonces. Y digo que
Gracias.
es en la comunidad de Arvin.
Sí,
Ok, perfecto, gracias.
gracias.
¿Alguna otra información o comentario? Porque sí es muy buena sugerencia lo que hizo ahorita Joana.
Gracias.
Ok, pues entonces creo que es todo. Se lo paso otra vez de nuevo a Jessica.
Sorry. For
Did you
which
have?
piece am I? I'm sorry.
Hey, Jessica, this is Amy.
This is
I'm
Jessica.
not sure if you had anything else to add to that. I think
Oh, gotcha. I was like, did she read my mind? This is Jessica. The only thing I was going to add to that is that I wanted to make sure that folks know that, and Mari said it at the beginning, that everything Maricela just went through about application is going to be for the lawnmower if you're doing it on your own. If you are going to be a part of our event, look out. We will send you information about that very, very shortly here. And we will get you through a similar, it'll be very much like what Maricela just walked you through, process. But we will take care of the bulk of the work for you when we host that event. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear.
Thank you, Jessica. Yes, because that was one of the goals, that folks understand that the online application might look very different than when they go do it in person. So thank you, Air District, for providing those updates. And now we're going to transition to our general standing updates. So as everyone knows who attends these meetings regularly, we do reserve some time to provide some comprehensive updates from multiple agencies and from community members. I'm looking at the time, so we have ample time to be able to go through today's updates. So with that said, we're going to first go through some general updates that the Air District has that everyone should be aware of. So at this time, I'm going to pass it back to the Air District to provide us some updates, and then we'll go through the list of our general agencies. We'll hear a brief presentation from Current Energy, and then at that time, we'll open it up for any other community updates that folks have at this time. So Jessica, would you like to kick us off?
Yes, thank you. This is Jessica. Thank you again to our outreach team for taking the lead on so much of today's meeting. I wanted to update you all on a couple of other things we talked about at our last meeting. The first is just an announcement, and you should be getting the email by the end of the day tomorrow, is that we are hosting on Tuesday, May 7th at 4 p.m. our Vegetative Barriers Subcommittee meeting. So that is really exciting. It's our first official subcommittee meeting. So please attend if you can. That of course will be via Zoom and have the translation services or interpretation rather, as with every meeting. I also wanted to let you all know, I said it at the top of the meeting based on questions, but as a something to remind you if you didn't hear me say it at the top of the meeting, we are getting official final next step approval from our board to move forward with the paving projects that you all supported in that Lamont, Fuller Acres, Kern County area. And so we will come to you. It sounds like our next meeting will focus a lot on those projects. So I think it's just great timing. We will have a more comprehensive update on all of the different questions you had, not only for us and the county, but also for Caltrans. And then my last update is that you should have an email, and you will probably get a few more from us before the summer is over. But on June 22nd, we invite you, it is a Saturday, to come out for something we are calling Community Clean Air Day. We are hosting it in Fresno at the Convention Center downtown. And for you all in the Arvin, Lamont, and certainly other Kern areas, we are all offering to have a bus take anyone who's interested in attending, a bus pick you up so you don't have to drive yourself to the event. So we'll continue to send out more information to you all, but I definitely, in case you haven't had a chance to take a look, we will also start sending maybe some physical materials to those that get physical packets. That way you can start to see the day as it is progressing. And definitely shout out, we definitely have some support from the co-leads in helping design this, and really looking forward to having a day where not only do you get to meet with the district in person, but you'll get to meet other CSC members from other CSCs across the valley, and maybe even just other communities that aren't a part of 617 across the valley in person, and share your story as well as hear their story. We're really excited about that, and really eager to move that forward. Other than that, I'll stop and see if there's any questions for me before I pass it back to you, Dr. Ramos. I don't see any, so I'll go ahead and pass it to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. This is Amy. I was just going through all the boxes, make sure there's no hands raised, and I'm not seeing anyone's. So at this time, we're going to invite CARB, or California Air Resources Board, to provide any updates. I see Michelle is here tonight.
Sorry, it took me a minute to get to my mute button. Yeah, I'm here. I don't have any really big announcements, except I am going to paste something into the chat just to let you all know so that it can get interpreted right. But let me see if I can, I'll say it verbally too. So last Monday, OCAP, that's the division that I work in, the Office of Community Air Protection. Some of my colleagues published an update to the Community Air Protection Incentives Guidelines. And this includes some new and updated project types that will help meet the community goals better. For example, one of the project types will now include paving, which just got done talking about. And this is going to help a lot of people to reduce their exposure to dust and to help improve the community greening as well. Some of the projects will. And I just wanted to let you all know that this comes directly from communities like yours, and will be helping communities everywhere that come into the program later, at later dates. So I just want to thank you all for your work on this. Wonderful. I'll post a link to those guidelines in the chat.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for posting those links, and appreciate the update, and appreciate how CARB is engaging in some of these community-driven processes. At this time, we typically do have an update from DPR, or Department of Pesticide Regulation, but I am looking for them and I'm not seeing them here. Oh, there you are, Jimmy. Hey, Jimmy, there you are. Would you like to provide any updates?
Yes. So I have a update regarding the pesticide notification system. We know that there has been significant public interest in hosting a beta test for the statewide notification system in Kern. We understand that this is tough news, and this has been a priority for the community in Arvin, Lamont. I can now let the community know that the statewide notification system is scheduled to go live in the first quarter of 2025. Kern County is targeted to be one of the counties that will be part of the priority rollouts in early 2025. But therefore, to achieve the timeline of the statewide notification launch in the first quarter of 2025, we, DPR, need to transition and focus on the final phases of design and development to launch the statewide notification system.
Amy, thank you, Jimmy, for that update. Any questions or comments from folks about this update? All right, not seeing anything. Oh, one spoke too soon. Go ahead, Bianca.
So you're telling the community members that their voices are not being heard with the notification, and that PR is not, sorry.
Hi, Bianca, this is Amy. I'm having a difficult time hearing you as the facilitator. I'm not sure if other folks are also having that same problem. So I want to make sure that we can translate everything as well. So the translation might be a little bit behind. Can you repeat everything you said? This is Amy again. I think we may have lost Bianca. I know Bianca is driving.
I had a question. So
Oh,
you're
there you
telling community members that their efforts and support for the notification, not just only from Arvin and Lamont, but from Chapter, are worthless, and their efforts to add it to the SERP is not going to be enough for DPR to represent them with the county. That's initially what the county wanted, and for you to tell members that their efforts and support for the notification.
Hi, this is Amy. Bianca, I heard the first part of your comment, but I did not catch the actual question.
I'll write the comment in the chat later on.
So I'm sorry, Bianca, we just can't translate and keeps on getting cut off. And
oh, this is Aniela from DPR. Sorry, I just wanted to jump in here. I was able to hear Bianca. I just wanted to let everybody know that at this time, DPR and Kern County were working hard to try to make this work. However, on both sides, we couldn't find a path forward. And we understand that that's really unfortunate and tough news for all of you guys who worked so hard to try to make this happen. Therefore, like at this time, because it just couldn't work on both sides, we figured out that the best path forward is to focus on that launch, which is now targeted for Q1 2025. And that way we can make sure that we can get that statewide notification out on time for that first quarter. And, you know, just make sure that Kern County is also a priority county for that first rollout. So that's what DPR is focusing on right now. Jimmy and I both were not on that team that worked on the notification system. So like that's all I've been told at this time. And if there's any interest later, we can talk about in the agenda setting meeting next week about potentially having somebody come for an update that might help.
And this is Jessica. Thanks, Aniela and Bianca. That was going to be my suggestion. It sounds like especially the team that we have here. I definitely want to thank the DPR folks here. It sounds like they might not be the notification team, but what I did hear, although not part of the test, the priority of Kern County is still a part of the early 2025 rollout. So before, like in the next 6 to 8 months, there will be a rollout of pesticide notifications, and Kern County will be one of the first to sort of make sure they're part of that rollout. But all of those details and maybe the next steps is something that I think maybe someone else from DPR might have. So I wonder if we can offer to have a more in-depth conversation with the right folks. And as Bianca, I know, is also going to put some maybe other thoughts together. Does that sound okay? And I know Gustavo rose his hand. I wonder if that works for him as well.
go ahead, Gustavo.
Yeah, you know, it's really disappointing, you know, just to hear this news. The residents and organizations work hard to bring both DPR and the county to the table. I think you all know the struggles that we had bringing the Ag Commissioner to have these conversations. And last year, we finally were able to, you know, pursue them to have the conversation. I think at least we have the right to know, because I think was mentioned, you know, that both sides were trying and both sides kind of recognized that, and that's not just my interpretation, that both sides recognize that maybe they didn't do enough to make it happen. I believe we deserve, explanations of why it didn't happen, because we really trusted both, DPR and the county, because we got the commitment from the supervisors that they were going to do their, best effort to make it happen. And, having 5 other counties having this project, not having, issues between the county and DPR in implementing these, similar projects, I just don't understand why, DPR and the county, the art commissioner, were not able to do that because, we want an explanation from DPR, but we also want to know all the information because we want to, at least we want to go back to the supervisors and, keep them accountable for any, lack of cooperation that they may, may not engage in doing that, because we really trusted both organizations, the county and the state. And this is really disappointing, like for residents in Shafter, they were doing peace advocacy for 4 or 5 years, going to the county supervisors meetings and, making the effort. And after, Arvin Lamont project came alive, we joined forces and we raised our voices with the county, bringing the county to the table. So the least we deserve is, transparency of what happened, why the both parties were not able to reach agreement, because I think we deserve that. I understand that, time is running, but I think we deserve, explanations of why the 2 entities were not able to, agree to make that happen for the community. It's not for both of them. They represent us, the residents. Thank you.
This is Amy. Thank you, Gustavo, for your words. Jesus Alonso?
I raised my hand for the same reason as Gustavo just mentioned. We really need a clarification of why it didn't work out and why we're essentially not being prioritized. I know, it was mentioned that later on we'll get it. But that's something we hear often. Later on, that data arrives. Later on, that data arrives. Later on, that data arrives. So like Gustavo said, we really do need an explanation as to, what had occurred, and we need some accountability. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Jesus, for your comments. I do know that at the end of the meeting, we are providing a date for the pesticide subcommittee meeting. Wondering, since Kern County isn't here tonight, if we can potentially request that DPR and Kern be there. Jessica from Air District, how does that sound?
At the pesticide subcommittee? Oh, of course, yes. This is the pesticide subcommittee is the Kern County and DPR and CARB subcommittee. So I think that makes the most sense. And that allows us to spend a good amount of time on the item. So if that makes sense for folks, that was exactly our thought as well, is that we spend that whole meeting maybe digging into, or as much as the meeting as we need, digging into it, but then also having an update at the next regular meeting that follows that pesticide subcommittee, so that everyone who can't make that meeting also gets the update. So that's maybe what we recommend. I appreciate that offer, and I definitely appreciate everyone on the call kind of sharing their frustration, and certainly also just some great direction on how we can make sure to keep everyone on the same page. Thanks.
Thank you, Jess. This is Amy. Gustavo, did you have a follow-up comment?
Yes. You know, unless I understood wrong, but looks like it's a done deal, you know, it's not going to happen. And if that's not going to happen, no matter what, you know, this project, pilot project, I would recommend for DPR and the county to provide the updates on a regular meeting, not on the subcommittee, because if there is still, if the DPR and the county are still willing to listen to the community and change their mind, yes, that makes sense to have that conversation, the pesticide subcommittee. If there is no way that they are going to change their mind, I would prefer for the two agencies to make the updates here with everybody, where everybody can hear. But if there is a chance that they change their mind, the pesticide subcommittees make sense. Otherwise, I would recommend to have the updates here with everybody.
Yeah, and I can take all of this information back to the people at DPR who are working on this specifically and give them this feedback. So I plan on doing that. And I definitely, and just everything is still going ahead, and all of the regulatory development and the development for the statewide notification system next year. So that's definitely happening. It's just the beta test for clarification.
Thank you, Aniela. I also see a hand raised from Lily.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to add in that on the pesticide subcommittee, OEHA, and I work with CARB as well. So there's other state agencies involved in some of these processes, and some of the rulemaking that DPR had mentioned earlier is tied into some of these processes that make it take longer. And I'm not trying to justify anything. I'm just trying to add that there are other agencies involved as well with pesticide concerns.
This is Amy. Thank you, Lily, for that context. Bianca, please go ahead.
Yes, I wanted to let everybody know we have a car full of members, and I want DPR to know that we actually went up to EPA this morning at 1 in the morning to talk to them about the notification, and for DPR to, in a CSC meeting, to let us know that is not going to happen. That's frustrating. And you're telling community of members from Arvin and Lamont and Shafter that all their efforts, them waking up at 1 in the morning, is worthless. It's a slap in the face. It is a slap in the face because they've been working on it for so long. And literally they're listening to the whole conversation at the moment. I had to pull out of the road and explain to them in detail how DPR is dismissing their remarks and all the efforts they've been doing. So I would want at least to Julie Henderson to give that public comment in a CSC meeting, because this is ridiculous that they've gone not just once. This is the second week in a row that we've gone to DPR for the notification. So I feel that it's very important for them for at least give a face to what all the work that has been done in the community.
Thank you so much, Bianca, and to everyone that's in your car for that, sharing your lived experience and sharing, the community perspective. It's really important to ensure that we're grounding ourselves during these meetings and recognizing the discrepancies that continue to emerge as part of the implementation of this work. So we will do our best as your facilitators to turn this into an action item and request that transparency that you all are asking for, and for that to happen at a CSC meeting and a continued conversation at the pesticide subcommittee meeting. One of our action items from our previous meeting was to invite Current Energy to tonight's meeting to provide a sort of Flare 101 kind of overview And Kern Energy is here to do just that. In their update, the goal here is for them to provide an overview of their process and how they use their own internal processes for their operations. So during this time, I'm going to pass it to, Kern Energy to provide us with their update. Again, if you have questions or comments, please do add them in the chat or raise your hand. At this point, I think I'm going to pass it to, I see Kit and Adam and Gabe.
And Melinda.
And you got Melinda.
And
Go ahead,
Hey, Melinda.
Thank you, Dr. Ramos. This is Melinda with Kern Energy. As she teed up for us just now, folks have expressed their interest in knowing more about the flare. And I think calling it a 101 is probably right, because there's certainly a lot more to it than what we could get into in this kind of forum. But we definitely wanted to provide some information and address that this evening. So I know they shared the link to the graphic in the chat, but I'll put that up on the screen and then we can kind of talk through that. Is that visible? Okay, perfect. So I want to start with just a few sort of establishing points, and then I'll try to talk through a few key details after that. But first and foremost, I just want the group to understand that the flare is a safety measure. I cannot emphasize that enough. And also, I think it's important for everyone to understand that it is monitored 24/7 a day, 24 hours, 7 days a week. And that's both by operations personnel that are manning our facility all day, every day. But also it's monitored by the Air District on a continuous basis. And that's through the continuous emissions monitor that it's equipped with, that sends data directly to the district. I know it's not really part of Kern's presentation, but also just wanted to establish that this is very heavily regulated by the district. We work with them closely on that, whether it's through that continuous data or through reports or on-site inspections or any number of other interactions we have with them in order to show that we're complying with Rule 4311 and our permit, and that we're maintaining safe operation of the flare and of the facility. So because it's a safety device, I just want to talk about a few other details. It has to be at the ready sort of all the time. There's always a pilot light that is lit on the flare, very similar to the pilot that works on all of our gas stoves in our homes or in our hot water heaters, so that those equipment or that device is at the ready anytime you need it to react. So it's ready in an instant, and that's exactly the way that we need the flare to be. So there may be times where you notice that pilot, and there may be other times where you don't, but it is always there, and it may just look like a little bit of white or a little bit of blue flame right at the very top of it. Sorry, excuse me there. The other thing I wanted to describe, and it's shown on this illustration, is that our facility, we refer to it as being a closed loop system, which means, I think kind of an easy way to describe it is that it's kind of like balancing a scale, where on one side of that scale, there's the gases that are needed for the operation. And then on the other side of the scale are all the gases that are produced by the operation. And if the two sides of that scale don't match perfectly, then it can result in excess gas that has to go to the refinery flare. And when that happens is when you're likely to see that orange flame at the top
And probably in the, as you're going by the facility, it will look like the flame on top of a candle or something, but that's because there's that imbalance. And so you're seeing that excess gas go to the flare. But again, I want everyone to understand that we're staffed 24/7. Our personnel are skilled. They're highly trained in operating the flare and the facility. They make adjustments in real time in order to ensure the safety and the correct operation of the equipment, and that we're always, always committed to operating safely and protecting our workers, our neighbors, and the community.
Hi, Melinda. This is Amy. Thank you for that update. I'm seeing a question from one of our residents that there's a little bit of confusion that they were told there were contaminants as part of this process. And so maybe given that this is a meeting dedicated to air quality and ensuring that we are mitigating carbon emissions, maybe you can talk a little bit about how this flare is related to any contaminants that, or Roberto, if you want to clarify your question, that community might be confusing it with, or any other context that you want to add to answer Roberto's question.
Yeah, if there's clarification to the question, I would appreciate that.
Sí, quería preguntar, siempre nosotros se nos ha dicho que cuando está la flama prendida está contaminando y se nos dice que tenemos que reportar porque es excesivo cuando tiene la llamarada grandísima de fuego, la antorcha. Entonces la pregunta es, ¿contamina o no contamina?
Thank you for the clarification. I don't want to answer from a public health perspective. I don't know that I'm the right one to answer that. I think we have to lean on folks like the Air District for that. But I will say that anytime you see the flare, we do work to minimize any type of flaring activity, although I cannot promise, we can't commit to avoiding all flaring. We do work to minimize that as much as possible. And when we do flare, it's within the allowable parameters that exist within the Air District rule and within our permit. And so while there may be emissions that are associated with it, it's within those permitted limits. And then, like I say, all of that data is going directly to the Air District, so there's visibility on that at all times.
This is Jessica. Thanks to Melinda. We do have someone from the Air District to talk a little bit, though, about the opportunities when maybe things aren't operating within those limits. And sometimes you all see something that doesn't look right to you, like smoke or something that you're visibly seeing. So I do have Cristela Avalos with the Air District compliance team. She works down in that area. She's based in our Bakersfield office to talk a little bit about that. We have a little bit of time, and I'd be happy to have her walk a little bit through kind of like what she looks for and what you can look for, if that makes sense.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Cristela Avalos, and I am one of the 2 inspectors assigned to Current Energy. Tonight, I would like to share with you some information on a few permit conditions related to the flare. When the flare is in operation, it does not indicate that there is something going wrong at the facility. In fact, one of the flare permit conditions is that the flame shall be present at all times when combustible gases are being vented through the flare. However, when the flare is operating, there should be no visible emissions except for periods not to exceed a total of 5 minutes during any 2 consecutive hours. Also, current is required to demonstrate compliance with this visible emissions limit at least annually by using the US EPA Method 22. In addition to a flame being present in a visible emission standard, there is also a throughput limit on the permit and an annual flare report that must be submitted to the district as required by District Rule 4311. District staff are at Current Energy on a regular basis conducting routine inspections of equipment and fugitive components, equipment breakdown inspections, and complaint investigations. Speaking of complaint investigations, if you see emissions or smoke coming from the flare, please contact us directly as soon as possible. When you submit a complaint directly to the district, it allows our inspectors to gather additional information from you to better address the complaint to assist in our investigation. You can file a public complaint anytime by calling our complaint line directly at 1-800-926-5550. Or you can also submit a complaint online through our website at valleyair.org under quick links or by using the Valley Air mobile app. Our public complaint line is staffed with an inspector 24/7 and 365 days a year and can take your complaint in English and Spanish. Thank you for your time this evening.
This is Jessica. I know there's a couple of questions in the chat, but I just want to reiterate what you all heard, to at least from my perspective as not an inspector, not someone who works at a refinery, is that you might see a flame on top of the flare that looks like a candle. Anytime you're seeing smoke or something visible, that is outside the limitations that is allowed by the district. So that is something not only that the district is already monitoring, but also something that definitely warrants something to call in so that someone on Cristela or anyone on her team can go back out there and make sure that we're working with Kern Energy to make sure that that doesn't happen or try to understand why that happened. So I know that we've talked a few, for past few years, occasionally this comes up because someone sees something. And so from what I'm hearing today is confirmation that that is the indicator, right? If you're seeing something visible coming off of that. One of the other piece is I will just add that one of the questions today, there is intention from Current Energy, but also from the Air District to work with other colleagues to have a follow-up to this flares discussion, digging a little deeper into the emissions and health impacts. That was a request we heard, but this was sort of part one, just to understand the flare itself, and then part two will be that. So I definitely want to thank you all for those questions and let you know that's something that we want to bring those experts to the following meeting to answer.
Thank you, Jessica. And I see related to that comment, a comment from CSC about significant benefits in air quality and health to be gained by reducing emissions from flaring and venting activities. So I'm going to pass it to you, CSC, to provide context and any questions that you may have.
Yeah. So that's one of the main findings in the study that's posted there, about the total cost in health effects that flaring causes, especially when they're near neighborhoods. So there is studies that have been done that show that flaring does cause health effects, especially around neighborhoods. And it's important to note that any visible emissions seen is something that can be an indicator that they are out of their out of their permit requirements. We've gotten a lot of reports that there's like puffing that comes on and off. And we have videos and pictures that have been reported to us by community members. But by the time inspectors get there, because they have to call the operator and let them know that there's a problem and that they're on the way, by the time they get there, what was happening usually is not happening. Is there something like for residents that collect that stuff, for them it feels useful for them for evidence, but it doesn't feel useful to them to make the reports, because when they do submit that, the inspectors have to be there to witness it, and they can't take that third-party pictures or video. Is there something that can be done to use that or to get community voices or that community evidence as part of the reporting process, because that has been something that has been an issue. One example is this Saturday, there was a report that was made about the Kern Energy refinery from two different people because there was thick white smoke coming from stacks. I called at, literally in the middle of the night at 12:15, and the inspector, somebody called me back at about 12:35 from the air district. So I think it is important to make those types of reports, but any evidence that community members have or collect can't be used. And is there something that we can do or something that we can ask the operators to do to start collecting that evidence? Because it seems like by the time the inspectors get there, that's not happening. And they also usually don't take any like FLIR cameras or visible emission evaluation or optical gas imaging. They only do visible emission evaluation, like with their eyes. And it seems like if they took monitoring equipment, they would be able to better assess the problems rather than doing simply, driving all the way out to do a visible emission evaluation and not bring the monitoring equipment.
This is Jessica. I think just in couple, and I do have Jennifer Lettergerber on the call, and maybe you can talk a little bit just more about the process when an inspector responds to these sorts of things. But I will say, in addition, it was mentioned earlier, even though we get there, I'm guessing, Jennifer, and if we have to witness some things ourselves, there are also other avenues. We definitely, I imagine, talk with Kern Energy, or we have that continuous emissions monitoring data that's coming to us that can also be a piece of that evidence. So I'm guessing even if we can't directly use the evidence or pictures from residents, it's helpful in that it allows us to make the contact have a timestamp and still go through the process just with our own tools. Is that something that makes sense?
Yes, you're absolutely correct. It's great to have video evidence. If we don't, that doesn't preclude us from doing a full investigation, as if we saw the flaring with our own eyes. We do work closely with Kern in gathering that information that is required by their permit. And so that is a part of our investigative process, as well as any other information or data that we can collect as a part of our investigation. It is all considered. And so that's really, the process we go through with every single complaint. And just to address the complaints from this last weekend, we are aware of those complaints, and we're currently working through those to gather that very information that we need to conclude our investigation.
Yeah, thank you. And the inspector called me promptly in the middle of the night, so props to them. And I definitely didn't want to discourage anyone from collecting videos or pictures. I just wanted to see if there was a better way to synthesize or collect that information. So thank you for that, Jennifer and Jess.
Thank you.
And thank you, Cesar, for your question. This is Amy. I'm also seeing a hand raised. I saw, Sandra, you had your hand raised, but I also see Elvia has a question. So maybe we can go to Elvia first.
Oh, nada más era para darle gracias a Marisela de la pregunta que le hice y me contestó. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Sandra?
Yeah, thank you. And I think Caesar really summed up a lot of what my comments were gonna be, but just wanted to voice that I think it's helpful to know when there's an issue going on in the refinery by what we can visually see. But I did want to also point out that in the annual progress report for the AB 617 last year, we did see that there was multiple violations on behalf of Current Energy, right? Meaning more than one violation per month. Meaning although community can now tell when there's an issue happening, it still isn't addressing the fact that they're violating their emission threshold and still contaminating and harming the community that lives next door, right? And I also just want to voice that I encourage community to always reach out and say when there is things happening, but the responsibility also should not be put on the community to voice when there is something happening in their neighborhood, especially when they're not the ones that are causing the contamination and the harm to their own families and their neighbors, right? So I come here to ask for a notification system. So when there is emissions that are being violated and they're exceeding the threshold, community is aware so they can actually take proactive measures to stay inside of their homes, right? And to not be taking all of that in. I have seen so many kids in Fuller Acres have runny, like bloody noses, headaches, migraines, and this is only particular to the folks that live next to refineries and not folks that don't live anywhere near. So just voicing that it's not the responsibility of the community to stay safe when they didn't put the polluting agency right next door to themselves.
This is Amy. Thank you, Sandra, for raising that and advocating for such a monitoring system. I'm also seeing a question in the chat from Evelyn. Is that monitoring system similar to SIMS where it collects data in 15-second intervals? Or what is the collection frequency and how often is it calibrated per permit requirements? Not sure if folks have the answer to that right now.
Yeah, this is Melinda again. That's exactly what I was going to say is I cannot rattle those specifics off verbatim, but I think that's something that we could add for a follow-up.
Amy, I also saw that Laura had multiple questions in the chat as well. I know it's hard to facilitate and keep track at the same time.
Oh yeah, no, Laura's part of our public members, so we call on public members after all of our CSC members have asked their questions.
Thanks.
We see your questions, Laura. We will call on them once the CSC has finished asking their questions. Jesus, please go ahead.
I know we talked a lot about visible emissions and making sure to report those. There have been times where the odors are just really strong, but there is no flare. Are those also reportable?
Yes.
And then, oh man, I think I had another question. Yeah, I'll stop there.
Yes, please report your odors as well through those same avenues, either by calling our complaint line, going online to our website, or using our Valley Air app.
Great. Thanks, everyone. This is Amy. Any other questions from the committee? I see Cesar has his hand raised.
Yeah, just bouncing off of what Jesus had mentioned about the smells. In some reports, we get feedback from the district that the leaks or the smells could be coming from tanks that are exempt. Could you explain to the committee why those tanks would be exempt?
Oh, go ahead, Jennifer.
Sure. Just briefly, we do have a district rule that covers tanks. It's Rule 4623. There are some exemptions within that rule. I don't think I can speak to every tank, but if there's a certain subset of tanks or a location at the facility that you're interested in knowing about, maybe we could come back to a CSC and have a brief little update on tank requirements, on controls and that sort of thing.
Thank you, Jennifer. Didn't mean to cut you off, Cesar. This is Amy. Thank you so much, Jennifer. And it sounds like one of the action items for tonight is to have a full comprehensive update, including health impacts and answers to many of the questions that were asked today. Given the time, and I'm not seeing any more questions from the CSC at this point, we'll open it up to public comment. And I do see a couple of questions from Laura, and I'm not sure if folks have answers to these questions as well, or if this could be added as an action item. So Laura's asking, could worker fatigue result in too much flaring or an exposure if someone does not press a switch? In addition to that, she's asking, did anyone see metal dust? Were there any recent equipment malfunctions. Those are questions that continue to be asked. Not sure, again, if folks have answers to those questions today or if we should add that for the follow-up.
I can address the question about worker fatigue and just say that while that is a concern, that's something that all facilities take into account. That's one of many things that are accommodated for with layers and layers and layers of protection that are built into how the refinery operates and how it's staffed and how people are trained and what instruments we have in place as safety devices. Relative to the question about metal dust or equipment malfunctions, I can't really speak to that, and without knowing like a specific time frame of when someone has a question of if there was an equipment malfunction, that's the key detail that we would need or that the Air District would need to be able to go back and try to correlate something. So anytime there's a question about that, knowing better specifics about the timing of it is really helpful.
Thank you, Melinda, for that. And if folks have other questions or other updates, we are happy to have the Air District send those updates via email. So feel free to put them in the chat and we can make sure that they get released as part of the follow-up to today's conversation. At this time, we're going to transition to wrapping up today's meeting. I see that it is 7 o'clock, right on the dot. So I want to make sure that we give you some vital information so that you can continue to attend these meetings. So Liz, if you could share your screen for our next series of meetings. What you will see here is that we do have an agenda setting meeting scheduled for May 2nd at 4 o'clock. This is our meeting that typically happens on Zoom. This is a great place for you all to come and share your thoughts about how tonight's meeting went, any recommendations that you have for presenters, facilitators, for anyone that is here today. In addition, it's your opportunity to provide insights on what you want to see on the agenda, what you want to prioritize for the next meeting. We heard a lot of recommendations for the next agenda, but coming to this meeting will help elevate your areas of concern and elevate your recommendations. In addition to that, you'll see that there is the launch of the Vegetative Barrier Subcommittee meeting, which will be on May 7th from 4 to 5 p.m. And that will also be via Zoom. You should see that in your invite calendar so that you can attend those meetings. And then lastly, our next scheduled Community Steering Committee meeting will be May 22nd at our usual time from 4 to 7 on our usual Zoom link. With that said, this concludes tonight's meeting. If there are any other general comments that folks have, now would be the time to ask them. So I'm just going to pause for a second. And Laura, I'm seeing your question there on the chat. What catalyst is used and does it contain any metals? We'll make sure to include that in the series of questions that will hope to be addressed at the follow-up presentation. All right, not seeing any more questions. Thank you all for a wonderful evening and for all your questions. Appreciate how engaged and how you continue to show up in these meetings. Thank you so much. And this concludes our evening for tonight. See you next time. Good night.
Thank you, everyone.